My name is Natalie Harris, and I am 29 years old. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. I believed blood meant loyalty, that sisters meant forever, that no matter what storms came, we would stand side by side. My sister, Melissa, was 3 years older than me, and when I was little, she was my hero. I still remember being 7 years old, hiding under the covers during thunderstorms, and Melissa slipping into my room to hold my hand. "Don't worry, Nat," she whispered. "I'll always protect you." Those words stayed with me. They became the foundation of how I saw her. She wasn't just my sister. She was my safe place. But safe places can collapse. Our childhood was not easy. Dad left when I was 12, leaving Mom to work double shifts to keep food on the table. Melissa stepped into the role of second parent, and I idolized her for it. She had a way of making me feel like, even though we were broke, even though our clothes came from thrift stores, we still had each other. As adults, our lives split in different directions. Melissa got married young to a man named Darren, charming at first glance, but lazy once the shine wore off. He drifted from job to job, always with excuses, always blaming others. Melissa carried the weight, working office jobs that barely covered the bills. I took another path. College, then graduate school, funded by scholarships and side jobs. I studied finance, not because I loved numbers, but because I was determined to never feel powerless about money the way Mom had. By 27, I had secured a solid job at an investment firm. The hours were brutal, but the pay was good. Slowly, I started building something Melissa and I had never known growing up. Security. But security can breed envy. The first hints were small. At family gatherings, Melissa would joke, "Here comes the rich sister," even though I was far from rich. She'd make comments about my clothes, about the car I drove, about the apartment I rented downtown. Always with a laugh, always with a smile, but underneath, there was an edge. I brushed it off. We were sisters after all. I told myself she was just teasing. Then came the night everything began to unravel. It was late, around midnight, when Melissa called me, her voice shaking. "Nat, I need your help. Darren, he lost his job again. The rent's overdue. We're drowning." I didn't hesitate. I wired her $2,000 the next morning. She cried, thanked me, promised it was just this once. It wasn't. Over the next year, the calls kept coming. An overdue bill here, a medical emergency there, Darren's big opportunity that never panned out. Each time, I told myself this was what sisters did. Each time, I handed over more money, even when it meant cutting corners in my own life. I didn't notice when gratitude turned into expectation. One afternoon, while I was visiting her house, I overheard Melissa on the phone with Darren. She laughed and said, "Don't worry, Nat will cover it. She always does." Something inside me cracked. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because part of me still clung to the girl who once whispered, "I'll always protect you." By the time I turned 29, I had saved enough for a down payment on a home. I kept most of my savings in a private account, my safety net. I had told no one about it, or so I thought. That's why, when Melissa called me one morning with an unusual cheeriness in her voice, I felt uneasy. "Nat," she said brightly, "I was thinking let's go to the bank together. You know, just to check things, make sure everything's set. Maybe even talk about investing some of your savings into something Darren's been working on." The way she said your savings made my skin prickle. I hadn't told her the amount. I hadn't told anyone. But Melissa had always been sharp, always watching. I agreed, more out of suspicion than trust. Something in me needed to see where this was going. 2 days later, we walked into the bank together. Melissa wore her best dress, makeup flawless, her smile wide and confident. She looked like a woman walking toward victory. I remember thinking, why does she look so excited about my account? We sat across from the bank manager, a middle-aged man with a kind face and careful eyes. He pulled up my account on his screen. Melissa leaned forward eagerly, her smile practically glowing. And then it happened. The manager cleared his throat, glanced at Melissa, then at me. His voice was steady but firm. "I'm sorry, but there's a hold on the account." Melissa froze. The smile on her face drained so fast it was like watching a mask fall. Her lips parted. Her eyes darted to me in panic, then back to the manager. "What do you mean a hold?" she snapped. "That money should be available." The manager raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me, ma'am, but this is Ms. Harris's account. And due to certain irregular activity, the account has been secured. Only Ms. Harris has access." Irregular activity. The words echoed in my ears. I turned slowly to Melissa. Her face was pale now, her hands trembling slightly on the table. For the first time, I saw the truth in her eyes. She hadn't brought me here to help me. She had brought me here because she thought she already had control of what I had built. And in that moment, as the silence stretched, I realized the sister who once held my hand during thunderstorms was gone. Sitting in her place was someone I barely recognized. And this was only the beginning. Melissa's face was a study in collapse, like a carefully painted mask cracking down the middle. The smile that had looked so polished when we walked into the bank was gone, and in its place was a nervous twitch of her lips. "What do you mean irregular activity?" she demanded, her voice sharper now. "There must be some mistake. This is my cyst." She cut herself off, realizing too late she had said too much. The manager turned his gaze back to me, brows raised. "Ms. Harris, would you like me to explain privately?" I nodded. My voice was steady, but inside, my stomach churned. "Yes." "Privately." Melissa reached across the desk, grabbing my arm. "Nat, come on, don't be dramatic. We're here together. There's no need to shut me out." For a second, I looked at her hand on mine. I remembered being a child, clutching that same hand in fear during thunderstorms. And then I remembered the sound of her voice on the phone to Darren, laughing. "Don't worry, Nat will cover it. She always does." I pulled my arm away. "Wait outside, Melissa." Her hazel eyes flickered with panic. "Natalie, please." "Outside," I repeated, sharper this time. The manager cleared his throat again, professional but firm. "Ma'am, only the account holder may stay." Melissa's chair screeched against the floor as she stood. She looked like she wanted to argue, but my glare stopped her. With a huff, she stormed out, heels clicking against the marble tiles. The door shut behind her, and the room felt suddenly lighter. The manager leaned closer. "Ms. Harris, I want to assure you first, your funds are safe. But last week, there was an attempt to add an authorized user to your account. Someone provided personal information, some of it accurate, some of it false. Our fraud department flagged it." My chest tightened. "Who?" He hesitated, then said carefully, "The name provided was Melissa Harris." The world tilted for a moment. My sister. Not just asking for money, not just manipulating me with guilt, but trying to legally tie herself to my savings. To my future. The manager continued. "We immediately placed a temporary hold until we could confirm with you directly. That's why the account is secured now. I suggest keeping it that way." I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Thank you for protecting it." He nodded. "Do you want to file a formal report?" Attempted fraud on a personal account is serious. The word fraud sliced through me. I pictured Melissa's face, pale with panic outside the door. I wasn't ready to press charges, not yet. My heart still tangled with old loyalties, the little sister in me still clinging to the girl who used to say, "I'll always protect you." "Not yet," I whispered. "Just keep it secure. And notify me if she tries again." He nodded solemnly. "Of course." When I left the office, Melissa was waiting in the lobby, arms crossed, her foot tapping against the tile. Her face lit up with fake brightness when she saw me, but I wasn't fooled anymore. "Well," she asked. "What did he say?" I walked past her without answering, straight toward the doors. She hurried after me, her heels clattering. Outside, the summer air hit us, hot and heavy. Melissa grabbed my arm again, her grip desperate. "Nat, what did you say in there?" I turned, my voice cold. "What did you do, Melissa?" Her eyes darted, her lips parted. For once, she had no ready answer. "You tried to put your name on my account," I said flatly. "Don't bother denying it. They told me." Her face drained of color. Then, just as quickly, she shifted gears, like watching a storm cloud morph into a sunny sky. She forced a laugh, waving her hand dismissively. Oh, Nat, come on. That's not what it was. Darren and we just thought maybe it would be easier if I could help manage things for you. You work so hard, you know? I was trying to take some of the burden off your shoulders. Her words were syrup, sticky and sweet, but her eyes betrayed her. Narrowed, calculating, desperate. I shook my head slowly. Don't insult me with lies. Her smile faltered. Nat. No, my voice was sharper this time, cutting through her excuses. You didn't want to help me. You wanted control. You wanted what I've built, what I've saved. You thought if you smiled pretty enough, I'd let you have it. The mask slipped. For the first time, Melissa's expression hardened, her voice low and bitter. Why not? You have more than you need. And I've been struggling for years. Do you even know what it's like to watch your little sister drive nicer cars, live in nicer places, eat at nicer restaurants, while I scrape by? Do you know what that feels like? Her words hit like a whip, but I didn't flinch. Yes, I said quietly. I do. I watched it my whole childhood. I watched you get the praise, the attention, the admiration, while I was the quiet one in the corner. I know exactly what it feels like to be invisible. But here's the difference, Melissa. I never tried to steal what was yours. For a moment, silence stretched between us. Cars passed, people bustled in and out of the bank, but the world seemed to hold its breath. Melissa's eyes shimmered, but not with tears, with fury. You think you're better than me now, don't you? I held her gaze. No. But I know I'm not less. She scoffed, yanking her arm away. Fine. Keep your precious money. Don't expect me to come running next time you need me. I almost laughed at that, because when had she ever come running for me? But the ache in my chest was too deep to find humor. She stormed off toward her car, slamming the door so hard the sound echoed through the lot. I stood there, staring after her, my hands trembling. Part of me wanted to chase her, to beg for the sister I once had. But another part, the stronger part, knew she was gone. The bank manager's words echoed in my head. Do you want to file a report? I hadn't then. But as I watched Melissa's car peel out of the lot, I realized this wasn't over. And the next time she tried, I might not hesitate. The drive home from the bank felt longer than usual, as though the city streets had stretched themselves just to keep me inside my thoughts. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. I couldn't shake the image of Melissa's smile crumbling, her voice dripping with bitterness, when she said I thought I was better than her. Was this what our relationship had come to? Two sisters who once shared secrets under blankets, now standing on opposite sides of a battlefield made of money. When I pulled into the parking garage of my apartment building, I sat in the car for nearly 20 minutes, staring at nothing. A strange heaviness pressed down on me. Betrayal has a way of rewriting your memories, tainting even the sweetest ones. I thought of Melissa braiding my hair before school, sneaking me cookies when Mom said no, promising to protect me during storms. All of those moments now seemed like props on a stage, disguising the truth of who she really was. But was it always there? Or had something in her broken along the way? That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and spread out my old journals on the dining table. I had kept them since I was 15. Flipping through the pages, I searched for clues, for signs I had missed. In one entry from college, I wrote about Melissa borrowing money from me and forgetting to pay it back. I had shrugged it off at the time. In another, I mentioned her mocking me for working part-time while she said she'd marry rich and never worry. I laughed when I wrote it then, but reading it now, it stung differently. Had the signs been there all along, hidden in plain sight? By midnight, I closed the journal, my eyes burning with fatigue and unshed tears. I realized something painful. Melissa didn't just want money. She wanted ownership of me, my life, my accomplishments, the proof that I had risen above our shared beginnings. And when she couldn't build her own, she tried to steal mine. The next morning, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Darren, her husband. Hey Nat, Melissa is really upset. She told me you embarrassed her at the bank.
Can we talk?
I stared at the screen, heat rushing at my neck. Embarrassed her? She had tried to commit fraud, and somehow I was the villain? I didn't reply. 2 hours later, another text came in. She's your sister. Don't let money ruin your bond. Call her. I set the phone down and paced the apartment. My bond? She had tried to hijack my future, and now Darren was twisting it into my fault. It was manipulation stacked on manipulation, a game they had probably perfected together. By evening, Melissa herself called. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. Nat, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. I wasn't thinking. I see you doing so well, and I feel like I'm drowning. I panicked. I wanted to believe her.
God, I wanted to.
But something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror. You didn't panic, Melissa, I said quietly. You planned. You went to the bank with my personal information. That wasn't panic. That was intent. Silence on the line. Then, a shaky breath. I miss us. I don't want to lose my sister over this. The words hit me, right where she knew they would. The little sister in me, still clutching memories of thunderstorms and hand-holding, wanted to reach across the void and pull her back. But the woman I had become knew better. You lost me the moment you tried to steal from me, I whispered and hung up. The days that followed were heavy. At work, I went through the motions, smiling at clients, crunching numbers, but inside, my chest ached. Betrayal isn't just anger, it's grief. It's mourning the person you thought someone was. One evening, I stopped by Mom's house. She lived in the same small bungalow we grew up in, her hair grayer now, her body thinner from years of hard work. As I sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea, I debated telling her everything. But before I could, she sighed and said, Melissa called me. She said you two had a fight. She's devastated. My stomach clenched. Did she tell you why we fought? Mom shook her head. She just said you've changed. That money has made you cold. The words sliced me open. Melissa was already rewriting the story, casting herself as the wounded sister and me as the greedy one. Mom, I said, my voice trembling. She tried to put her name on my bank account. Without my permission. That's not a fight. That's betrayal. Mom's eyes widened, her teacup trembling in her hands. Are you sure? I nodded. The bank confirmed it. She sat back, shock etched across her face. For a long time, she didn't speak. Finally, she whispered, I don't know who she is anymore. Neither did I. The final straw came a week later. I received a letter in the mail, an official-looking envelope addressed to me. Inside was a proposal signed by Melissa and Darren. They wanted me to invest a portion of my savings into Darren's new business idea, promising me shared ownership of something they hadn't even detailed. It was written like a contract, complete with signature lines. My hands shook as I read it. The audacity. After everything, they still thought they could corner me, still believed they could wrap their hands around what I had built. I shredded the letter. Then I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and drafted an email to the bank manager. Filed a report. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about drawing a line, about saying I would no longer be the sister who always covered it, who always forgave, who always bent until I broke. Melissa had taken enough from me. Now I was taking back control. The morning I filed the report, I felt like I had swallowed a stone. It sat heavy in my chest, pressing against every breath. My finger hovered over the send button on the email to the bank manager for nearly a minute before I finally clicked it. And just like that, it was done. I thought I would feel relief, but what I felt was grief. Grief for the sister I once believed in. Grief for the bond one had spent my life protecting. But grief is different from regret. I didn't regret protecting myself. I regretted needing to. The bank manager called me later that afternoon. Ms. Harris, thank you for your email. We've submitted the documentation. The attempt to add an unauthorized user has been flagged as fraud. Because you acted quickly, your account is safe. But I do need to inform you, this will be investigated formally. I closed my eyes. I understand. The word fraud sounded so final, so ugly. It wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a crime. That evening, my phone exploded with calls from Melissa. I ignored the first 5, but on the 6th I picked up. Her voice was frantic. "Nat, what did you do?" "The bank called Darren. They said there's an investigation. Do you know what this means?" "You've ruined us." I gripped the phone tighter. "I ruined you?" "Melissa, you tried to steal from me." "It wasn't stealing," she shouted. "It was borrowing. We would have paid you back by forging your name onto my account." My voice was ice. There was silence, then a hiss. "You're heartless. Do you know how hard life has been for me? For us? You've been handed everything, and you couldn't even share with your own sister." Her words stabbed, but I refused to let them pierce deep. I wasn't handed anything. I worked for every penny. I sacrificed. I bled. I burned myself out to build this life. And while I was doing that, you laughed about me covering your bills. Her breathing was heavy on the line. Then she spat. "You'll regret this, Natalie. You'll regret turning on family." And she hung up. 2 days later, the fallout began. Mom called me, her voice tight. "Natalie, what's going on?" "Melissa is hysterical. She says you've accused her of something terrible. She says you're trying to destroy her." I swallowed hard. "Mom, she tried to add herself to my account. Without my permission. That's fraud." Mom's voice broke. "But she's your sister." I bit back tears. "And I'm your daughter. Why is it always her you defend?" The silence on the line was sharper than any words. Finally, Mom whispered, "I just don't want this family to fall apart." "Mom," I said softly, "it already has." The whispers started soon after. At the grocery store, I caught people glancing at me, their voices hushed. A coworker asked casually if everything was all right at home. Melissa was doing what she did best, spinning the story. In her version, I was the villain, the greedy younger sister who cut her off, who let a little money come between family. She cried to anyone who would listen, painting herself as the victim. But the bank had the documents. The investigation had proof. And deep down, I knew truth didn't need to be shouted. It just needed to be held. One night, Claire, our cousin, called me out of the blue. "Natalie, I don't know what's really going on, but Melissa has been telling everyone you're cruel, that you turned your back on her when she needed you most. But I don't believe her. Not after hearing you helped her so much already." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Claire. You don't know how much that means." "She's desperate," Claire continued. You can hear it in her voice. "I think she knows this time. She's gone too far." Her words sank deep. Gone too far. Yes. Melissa had always pushed, always tested the line. But now, she had crossed into a place there was no coming back from. The bank's fraud department called me the following week. "Ms. Harris, we've concluded our initial review. The attempt to add your sister's name to your account was deliberate and unauthorized. You have the option to pursue charges." I sat at my desk, my laptop screen glowing in front of me, my chest heavy. Pursue charges. The words felt like a cliff. One step forward, and everything would change forever. Melissa would no longer just be my sister. She would be a criminal. That night, I sat on my balcony, staring at the city lights. The hum of traffic below sounded like static in my ears. I thought of the girl who once held my hand in storms. I thought of the teenager who lent me her sweater when I was cold. I thought of the young woman who had laughed with me at our father's funeral, trying to soften the pain. But then I thought of the woman who had stood in the bank lobby, smiling like she had already won, like my life was hers to take. And I realized something. Maybe Melissa had been two people all along, the sister I loved and the stranger who resented me. And maybe the hardest part of growing up was accepting that sometimes love isn't enough to keep both versions alive. I whispered into the night, "I won't let you destroy me, Melissa. Not anymore." And for the first time, I felt the faintest edge of peace. The next morning, I woke with my phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen lit up with Melissa's name again, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest tightened every time I saw her name, a reminder of the sister who had once been my safe place and was now my threat. Instead, I rolled out of bed, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen counter staring at the folder the bank had mailed me. Official documents, copies of forms she had tried to submit, her handwriting scrawled across lines where my name should have been. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof. I picked up the papers and whispered to myself, "You did this, Melissa. Not me." But the truth didn't stop the ache. That afternoon, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her face was lined with worry, her hair hastily pinned back. She carried a grocery bag filled with homemade soup, as if chicken broth could patch a fractured family. "Natalie," she began, setting the bag down. "We need to talk." I braced myself. "Melissa came over last night," she continued. "She was crying, saying you've turned her life upside down. She swore she never meant to hurt you, that she was just desperate. She begged me to talk to you, to remind you that she's your sister." I pressed my palms against the cool marble of the counter, trying to ground myself. "Mom, she tried to steal from me. She went behind my back, forged paperwork, and nearly got access to everything I've worked for. That isn't desperation. That's betrayal." Mom's lips trembled. "She says Darren pressured her, that she didn't know what she was signing." I almost laughed, the sound bitter. "She walked into the bank with me, Mom. She smiled like she'd already won. Don't tell me she didn't know." Tears welled in my mother's eyes. "I just don't want to lose both of my daughters." The words cut deep. For a moment, I felt like a child again, begging for attention, watching Melissa soak up the spotlight. Even now, Mom was bending over backward to keep Melissa safe, even if it meant minimizing what she'd done to me. "You're not losing me," I said softly. "But if you keep defending her lies, you will lose me. Because I can't live my life being gaslit into thinking I'm the problem." Mom went silent. She looked at me for a long moment, and for the first time, I saw something shift in her eyes. Not full understanding, but a flicker of recognition that I wasn't the little girl who needed her approval anymore. She left without finishing the soup. That night, I sat in bed with the fraud department's number pulled up on my phone. My thumb hovered over the call button. All it would take was one press, one word, and Melissa's life would unravel. But my hand shook. Because pressing charges wasn't just about justice. It was about severing the last thread of sisterhood I had left. I closed my eyes and let myself remember one good thing. I remembered Melissa holding my hand on the first day of middle school when I was terrified. I remembered her teaching me how to curl my hair before prom. I remembered her sitting beside me when Dad left, whispering, "We'll be okay, Nat. We've still got each other." Those memories tangled with the fresh ones. Melissa laughing on the phone about me covering her bills, Melissa pushing me into investing in Darren's scams, Melissa forging her name onto my account. The two versions of her collided in my mind, and I realized something devastating. I couldn't save the version I loved without excusing the version that hurt me. The next day, I made an appointment at the bank to finalize my decision. As I sat across from the fraud investigator, he looked at me with calm professionalism. "Ms. Harris, you have two options. We can document this as attempted fraud and pursue charges, or we can close it internally and keep the record sealed. Either way, your account is secure." I swallowed hard. "What happens if I press charges?" He leaned back. "Your sister would be summoned for questioning. It could go to court. It could affect her credit, her employment, even her future opportunities. It's not a light step. And if I don't, then it stays a family matter. But keep in mind, if she's willing to do this once, she may try again." His words echoed in my chest like a drum. She may try again. I stared down at my hands. My nails dug into my palms, grounding me in the reality I didn't want to face. Melissa had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I lifted my head, my voice steady. "File it." The investigator nodded, making a note. "We'll proceed." The fallout was immediate. Melissa called me that night, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "How could you do this to me? To your own sister? Do you know what they're saying? Darren's furious. My reputation, my job, everything is ruined because of you." I let her words wash over me like waves against stone. You ruined yourself, Melissa. Actions have consequences. Her voice cracked into a sob. I hate you, Natalie. I hate you for making me feel small all my life. You think you're better than me, but you're nothing without me. I hung up. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Days turned into weeks. The investigation moved slowly, but the tension in the family didn't. Mom called less, unsure how to balance her daughters. Some relatives sided with Melissa, whispering that I had gone too far. Others quietly told me they admired my strength. One evening, Claire came by my apartment with takeout. She plopped the bags on my table and said, "You did the right thing. Melissa needs to face reality. She's been playing the victim her whole life." Tears filled my eyes as I opened the cartons. It doesn't feel like the right thing. It feels like cutting out part of myself. Claire reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Sometimes you have to cut out the infection to save the body.
Her words settled deep into me.
For the first time, I let myself consider that protecting myself wasn't betrayal, it was survival. One night, alone on my balcony, I looked out over the glowing city skyline. My life wasn't perfect. It was messy, bruised, cracked with scars I hadn't asked for. But it was mine. I had built it without stealing, without lies, without manipulation. Melissa's shadow still lingered, but it no longer defined me. I whispered into the night, I don't regret choosing myself. And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. The official letter arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. I found it waiting in my mailbox, the return address stamped with the county seal. My hands trembled as I tore it open, already knowing what it would say. Melissa Harris, my sister, was under investigation for attempted fraud. Seeing her name in black ink beside the word fraud knocked the air out of me. It didn't matter that I'd expected it, that I'd asked for it. The reality still felt like a punch to the gut. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the paper. For years, Melissa's name had meant safety, laughter, family. Now it was tied to betrayal, theft, lies. I whispered to myself, this is what you chose, Natalie. This is the price of protecting yourself. That week, the calls and messages escalated. Melissa's number lit up my phone 10, 20 times a day. When I didn't answer, Darren started texting. You're destroying your sister's life.
Drop it now.
Do you want her family to hate you forever? Money isn't everything, Natalie. Blood is. Each message made my chest tighten, but I refused to respond. I blocked Darren's number. Then Melissa's. But silence didn't stop them. At work, I overheard whispers. A colleague pulled me aside one afternoon, his voice hesitant. Natalie, is it true? Your sister's in trouble with the bank. I froze.
Who told you that?
He shrugged. Word gets around. People talk. Melissa was already spinning her story, painting herself as the victim, me as the ruthless sister who sold her out. And she was doing it loudly enough for it to echo into my professional life. I clenched my fists under the desk. She wasn't just trying to steal my money anymore, she was trying to steal my reputation. That weekend, I drove to Mom's house. I hadn't seen her in weeks, not since she'd come to my apartment with soup and divided loyalties. She opened the door slowly, her face pale, her eyes tired. Natalie, she said softly, as though saying my name hurt. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and dust. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Melissa and I had done homework as kids, where Mom had served pancakes on Saturdays, where Dad had once read the newspaper before he left. Mom sat across from me, folding her hands. Melissa came by yesterday. I braced myself. She says you've ruined her, Mom continued. She says you're making her look like a criminal. I met her eyes. She made herself look like a criminal, Mom. I didn't forge paperwork. I didn't try to steal. Mom flinched, but she didn't argue. She just looked older, smaller somehow. She's still your sister, she whispered. I leaned forward, my voice steady. And I'm still your daughter. Why is it always her pain you see, but never mine? Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't answer. For a long moment, we just sat there in silence, Two women bound by blood but pulled apart by betrayal. Finally, I stood. I can't make you choose, Mom. But I won't keep bleeding just to keep her comfortable. I left before she could reply. The next week, the investigation moved forward. I was asked to provide testimony, everything I knew, every piece of evidence. Sitting in the small conference room with a fraud investigator, I felt exposed, raw. But I also felt strong. I handed over the forged documents, the shredded proposal Melissa and Darren had mailed me, the text messages begging for money. Each piece was another crack in the mask Melissa had worn for so long. When I finished, the investigator nodded. "This is clear, Ms. Harris. It's going to be very difficult for her to deny intent." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." Walking out of that office, the air felt different. Lighter. Like I had set down a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. But Melissa wasn't done fighting. At the next family gathering, one I didn't attend, she made her case. Claire called me afterward, her voice brimming with indignation. "Natalie," she stood up in front of everyone and said, "you're greedy. That you'd rather see her in jail than help your own blood."
She cried.
People believed her. I closed my eyes. "Of course," she cried. "That's what she does." Claire hesitated. Some people sided with her. But not everyone. A few of us told her straight up, what she did was wrong. That you had every right to protect yourself. Her words warmed me, a flicker of light in the darkness. "Thank you," I whispered.
Claire sighed.
"Melissa's mask is slipping, Nat. People are starting to see the truth. It won't be long before everyone does." A week later, it happened. Melissa stormed into my office building, ignoring the receptionist, demanding to see me. She looked disheveled, her hair messy, her eyes wild. She cornered me in the lobby, her voice loud enough to draw stares. "You think you're so perfect, don't you?" she spat. "With your fancy job and your big savings account. But you're nothing, Natalie. Nothing without me. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're punishing me for it." I stared at her, stunned by the sheer delusion in her words. Around us, colleagues and strangers watched, their eyes wide. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly, my voice carrying through the lobby. "No, Melissa. I'm not jealous. I'm done. Done being your safety net. Done being your scapegoat. Done being your victim." Her face twisted, but I didn't back down. "You tried to steal from me," I said, each word sharp as glass. "You betrayed me. And now, you're facing the consequences. That's not my fault. That's yours." The silence afterward was deafening. Melissa's mouth opened, but no words came. She turned on her heel and stormed out, her heels clattering like gunshots on the tile. For the first time, I didn't feel like the little sister standing in her shadow. I felt like a woman who had finally stepped into her own light. That night, standing on my balcony with the city glowing beneath me, I realized something. Melissa's betrayal had broken me, yes, but it had also freed me. I no longer carried the weight of her expectations, her manipulations, her lies. I no longer believed it was my job to save her. For the first time, I belonged fully to myself. And no one, not even my sister, could take that away. The letter arrived on a Thursday morning, slipped under my door in a plain, white envelope. I picked it up with trembling hands, already knowing it would mark the end of something. When I tore it open and read the words inside, my chest tightened. Melissa Harris, formally charged with attempted bank fraud. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the page, the world around me blurring. The little sister in me wanted to cry, to scream, to beg for another outcome. But the woman I had become only whispered to herself, "This is what happens when truth finally catches up to lies." That evening, I poured a glass of wine and stood on my balcony overlooking the city lights. For so long, I had carried the weight of Melissa's betrayal like a stone in my chest. Now, for the first time, it felt like that stone had cracked open. But freedom has a cost. Mom called later that night. Her voice was quiet, almost brittle. "It's official then," she said. I closed my eyes. Yes. She was silent for a long time, and I braced myself for blame, for guilt, for the same tired, defensive Melissa. But instead, she sighed. I wanted to believe she'd change. I wanted to believe she could be saved. But maybe she has to face this to learn. Tears welled in my eyes. Do you hate me for it? No, she whispered. I hate that it came to this. But I don't hate you. Her words wrapped around me like a blanket, fragile but real. For the first time, I felt like maybe Mom finally saw me, not just the daughter who held everything together, but the woman who had chosen herself. A week later, the hearing was scheduled. I didn't go. I didn't need to. The bank had all the evidence they needed. Melissa had forged documents, attempted to gain unauthorized access. There was no denying it anymore. Instead, I sat in my apartment that morning, sipping coffee, staring at the clock. I thought about Melissa sitting in that courtroom, her perfect smile gone, her lies unraveling under the weight of truth. It should have felt like victory, but it felt like mourning. Because in that courtroom, I didn't just lose my sister, I buried her. The fallout rippled through the family. Some relatives cut ties with Melissa completely, horrified by what she'd done. Others clung to her, convinced she was still the victim. For once, though, I didn't try to defend myself. I didn't try to explain.
The truth was out there now.
I didn't need to shout it anymore. Claire stopped by one evening with groceries. She set them on the counter and hugged me tightly. You did what you had to do, Nat. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Her words steadied me. For so long, I had carried guilt like a second skin. But slowly, I was learning to set it down. Weeks passed. Life began to feel normal again, or at least a new version of normal. Work kept me busy. I went to yoga classes, tried new recipes, even reconnected with an old friend from college. Slowly, I rebuilt the pieces of myself that Melissa had tried to take. But sometimes, late at night, I still heard her voice in my head. You'll regret this, Natalie. You'll regret turning on family. The difference now was that I knew the truth. I hadn't turned on family. Family had turned on me. One evening, months later, I stopped by Mom's house for dinner. The kitchen smelled of roast chicken and rosemary, the air warm with nostalgia. We sat at the old table, just the two of us. At one point, Mom reached across the table and took my hand. You know, Natalie, your father used to say blood is everything. But I think he was wrong. Blood matters, but loyalty matters more. And you've always been loyal, even when no one deserved it. Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to save her, Mom. I really did. Mom squeezed my hand. Sometimes saving someone means letting them fall. You can't carry her forever. Her words sank deep, healing something raw inside me. Later that night, driving home, I realized something important. Melissa's betrayal had shattered me, but it had also reshaped me. It had taught me boundaries, strength, and the truth about love. Love without respect isn't love, it's leverage. And I was done being leveraged. I wasn't just the sister who was betrayed. I wasn't just the victim of fraud. I was Natalie Harris, a woman who had survived storms, rebuilt herself from the ground up, and refused to let betrayal define her future. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my window. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I stood at the mirror, looking at my reflection. My eyes were tired but steady, my face marked by scars of pain but also by resilience. I whispered to myself, "You chose yourself, Nat." And that was enough. Then I picked up my keys, stepped into the day, and left the past behind me.